Hey everyone, welcome back to Cursed Casefiles. You know Wisconsin, right? All those flat lands, endless forests, peaceful lakes, and quiet gravel roads. It's the kind of place where life just happens. Normal, everyday stuff. But sometimes things go really, really wrong. And what's left behind are mysteries that nobody can crack, no matter how hard they try. So today, we're diving into 5 of the darkest, most unexplained cases to ever come out of Wisconsin. Let's get into it. Alright, so picture this. A YouTube video pops up online that could actually hold the key to finding a missing Wisconsin teenager. Sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what happened with Kayla Berg. It's August 11th, 2009. Just a normal Tuesday night in Antigo, Wisconsin. Kayla Berg is 17 years old, and she's out hanging with a friend. Nothing unusual about that. Typical teenage night, you know? But here's the thing, that night never really ended the way it should have. And to this day, nobody knows why. So let me tell you about Kayla. She was born in March of '92, just finished her junior year at Antigo High School. Her parents were divorced, so she was living with her dad at the time. Pretty standard teenage life: school, gymnastics, staying up way too late, texting her friends until her phone died. She wasn't the type to just wander off. If she wasn't physically with her friends, she was definitely on the phone with them. That particular night, she met up with an old friend named Miguel Marrero. He was 24 at the time. According to him, they just drove around for a bit, smoked some weed, caught up on life. Pretty chill. Around 9 p.m., Kayla asked him to drop her off at another friend's house over in Wausau, this older place on McDonald Avenue. And here's where things get weird. Marrero told the cops he did exactly what she asked. Pulled up to the house, she got out, he drove away. Simple, right? Except when investigators actually checked out this house. It was completely abandoned. Like, we're talking padlocked doors, boarded up windows, no electricity, nothing. Nobody had lived there in years. When they asked Marrero about it, he just said Kayla told him her friend hung out there sometimes, and he didn't really question it. Which, okay, I guess, but it's still pretty strange. So when Kayla didn't come home that night, her dad figured she was just staying at a friend's place. No big deal. But by the weekend, when nobody had heard from her at all, her mom Hope filed a missing persons report. And that's when things started falling apart. Police traced her phone activity. It pinged last in Wausau around 9 p.m. the night she disappeared. But after that, nothing. No calls, no texts, no social media activity. Complete silence. They interviewed Marrero early on. His story never changed, and there was zero evidence putting him anywhere suspicious. They couldn't charge him because, technically, there was no proof that anything bad had even happened. Just a teenage girl who vanished into thin air. But that abandoned house? That made this whole thing feel way darker than your typical runaway case. For years, searches spread all across northern Wisconsin. Flyers everywhere, people combing through wooded areas, interviews with old classmates, even psychics got involved. But nothing led anywhere. Then, in 2016, 7 years later, this absolutely disturbing video shows up online. The title? "Hi Walter, I got a new girlfriend." In the video, there's this guy talking excitedly to the camera about meeting some girl. Then it cuts to what looks like a basement, and there's this young woman sitting in a corner, crying, looking absolutely terrified. And the resemblance to Kayla? It was uncanny. The dark hair, the build, the fear in her eyes. People immediately thought it was her. Within days, police departments all over Wisconsin were getting flooded with calls about this video. The FBI got involved. They tracked down the people who made it. And after all that panic and investigation, the woman in the video was found. She was alive and completely fine. The whole thing was fake. Just some twisted horror skit or whatever. But you know what? The fact that so many people saw Kayla in that woman's face says everything about how desperate people were for answers, about how deep this uncertainty had really sunk in. As of 2025, Kayla Berg's case is still open. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children still has her profile up. Over the years, there have been searches in remote areas around Burnett Wood and Wausau, but nothing's turned up. What happened to Kayla Berg is one of those mysteries that feels both totally ordinary and completely impossible at the same time. Just one ride, one empty house, one creepy video, and a silence that's lasted over 16 years now. This case right here, this one divided an entire nation. October 31st, 2005. Halloween. Teresa Halbach, a 25-year-old professional photographer, is driving her blue Toyota RAV4 through the back roads of Manitowoc County, Wisconsin. She's got a routine assignment that day photographing a van for Auto Trader magazine. Teresa was young, talented, and trying to build a real career out of photography, which isn't easy. But she was organized, professional, always on time. She lived near Green Bay and spent her days driving all over the countryside, taking pictures of vehicles for listings. It was honest work, and she was good at it. That Halloween afternoon, she called her mom around 2:30 p.m., said she was done with work for the day. And after that call, she disappeared. For 5 days, her family waited. When Teresa missed a planned visit and didn't return any calls, her parents filed a missing persons report on November 3rd. Search efforts kicked in immediately, focusing on her usual routes and the addresses from her Auto Trader work log. And one name stood out: Stephen Avery. He was the last client she was scheduled to visit. Now, if you don't know who Stephen Avery is, let me fill you in real quick. Back in 1985, he was wrongfully convicted of assault and spent 18 years in prison before DNA evidence cleared him. After he got out, he filed a $36 million lawsuit against Manitowoc County and several officials. So when Teresa vanished right after visiting his property, yeah, that was an uncomfortable coincidence. Here he was, forced to deal with law enforcement again, and a lot of those same people definitely had a chip on their shoulder about him. On November 5th, 2 volunteers searching Avery's salvage yard found Teresa's RAV4 hidden under brush and debris. The license plates had been removed and were found nearby. That triggered a search warrant, and what they found was damning. Her cell phone, her camera, her car key, all scattered or hidden on the property. Then they found burned human bone fragments in a fire pit behind Avery's trailer and in a nearby burn barrel. DNA testing later confirmed those remains were Teresa Halbach. Stephen Avery was arrested on November 9, 2005, and charged with murder. A few months later, his 16-year-old nephew Brendan Dassey was also arrested after this really long, really troubling interrogation where he gave a confession. A confession that many people would later call coerced and inconsistent. According to Brendan, he and Stephen assaulted and killed Teresa, then burned her body. At trial, Avery maintained his innocence. He insisted he was being framed by local authorities who wanted revenge for his earlier exoneration and that pending $36 million lawsuit. His defense team pointed out all these errors in evidence handling, questionable chain of custody issues, and the fact that investigators from Manitowoc County were involved despite having clear conflicts of interest. The prosecution, they said the evidence spoke for itself. The car, the key, the blood, it all told a clear story in their eyes. In March 2007, both Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey were convicted and sentenced to life in prison. The Halbach family has never wavered in their belief that justice was served. But the public narrative? That fractured pretty much immediately. In 2015, Netflix released this documentary called Making a Murderer, and it absolutely exploded. Millions of people worldwide got pulled into this case, and it casts serious doubt on basically every aspect of the investigation, from the interrogations to how evidence was recovered. People are still divided on this case to this day. Some supporters call Avery and Dassey victims of systemic failure and corruption. Critics point to the physical evidence and the jury's findings as proof of guilt. In 2019, Avery's attorney Kathleen Zellner filed these extensive post-conviction motions with new forensic testing and witness statements. But as of 2025, no new trial has been granted. Both Avery and Dassey are still in prison, and most of their appeals have been denied. For investigators and the family, these are the bare facts. Teresa left her home on Halloween 2005 to take some photographs. She never came back. Her car, her remains, fragments of her daily life, all found within 1 square mile of a single property, place she'd been to before, with a man who once stood as proof of injustice and is now seen by many as its author. This case is still one of the most controversial in American criminal history.